Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group, and with me as always is Chip Januszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, Eric. Wonderful spring day. Happy spring.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're finally turning the corner. We've got some great weather. We've turned the clocks back and moving forward.
Actually, we jumped ahead. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's only 1 o'clock for this podcast.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still recovering from lack of sleep.
Yeah. Well, this week our guest is Al Marino from Connecticut Foodshare. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, Al appeared on our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, talking about the problems that were going on with food insecurity. He's going to give us a bit of an update and talk about all the changes that the organization's gone through in that time. So welcome, Al.
Good afternoon, Eric, Chip. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be back with you guys.
It is so good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, of course, I just introduced you as being from Connecticut Foodshare. That's a relatively new designation. Why don't you tell us what went on with the organizations?
Absolutely, Eric. So, believe it or not, this is now the 40th year that we are in business, and really that most food banks are in business in the United States. I came over from Foodshare, and a little over a year ago, our two boards, Foodshare and Connecticut Food Bank, which was our sister food bank down in Wallingford, began having conversations about the potential of merging. And that all those conversations happened right through the pandemic. And at the end of 2020, they decided to really kind of push things forward. And they came to an agreement the beginning of 2021. I believe February 1st of 2021 was our first day as a new entity. And so we combined both operations, and we are now one food bank in the Feeding America network for the state of Connecticut. We rebranded, and in the process of rebranding our name as Connecticut Foodshare, to both highlight and respect the legacy of both prior food banks and indicate to all that are out there that we are certainly the food bank for all of the state of Connecticut and all of its food insecure residents.
And for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with it, Feeding America is a larger organization that connects food banks all over the country, correct?
That is correct, Eric. It's one of the many networks, well, not many, but I would say a few networks that are out there. They began, as I said, back in the early 80s. At one point in time, it was known as the Second Harvest Food Bank Network. And they came across and they rebranded several years back as Feeding America. And right now, there's about 200 food banks throughout the network. So anywhere in the United States, north, south, east, west, if someone is hungry, they're going to be able to find food somehow, some way. And the food bank is exactly that. It's an active food distribution warehouse that we in turn provide food to many of our partner programs. Right now in the state of Connecticut, we have about 700 of those partner programs, and they consist of everything from food pantries to community kitchens to homeless shelters to transitional housing, anyone that needs food. And right now we have about 700 programs throughout the state. So it's quite a task to be able to get food to everyone on a regular basis.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, Connecticut, first of all, is not that big a state. And it's also considered one of the richest states in the country. And yet there's still a need for 700 different partner programs to get food to people.
Absolutely, Eric. And that's a wonderful point to dwell upon just a bit here. The fact that Connecticut is considered one of the richest states, but we have, as Jason Jakubowski, our CEO, says, we have like 169 fiefdoms, 169 towns. Everyone does something a little bit differently. But unfortunately, hunger exists in almost every one of the towns in the state of Connecticut. Right now, in our state, believe it or not, there are approximately 428,000 residents that are food insecure. That amounts to about 1 out of 8 residents. And sadly, there of that number, there's about 110,000 children, or 1 in 7, that are struggling with food insecurity. And food insecurity is really defined as anyone who struggles or worries about where their next meal is coming from. And there's many people that are still in below the poverty line, many people that are underemployed, and they struggle to get food and feed their families. And this was really, really brought to life during the pandemic. That, as many people know that are listening today, that was a very, very challenging situation. And it's still very challenging. Just because we're coming out of the pandemic does not mean that we are done with food insecurity by any means. The problem still exists, but we're trying to make things better for a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Now, speaking of the pandemic, I mean, you stepped up at Foodshare so much right from day one. I know you had the people there. I know you had a great team of volunteers. You opened up the parking lot at Pratt Whitney every day, served. I mean, how many meals did you serve there? For how long was that open, day after day after day? I mean, it was just an amazing.
Thank you, Chip. We appreciate that. It was really an amazing undertaking. I tell people all the time, and a lot of people, I think, at the time when the pandemic kind of came about, people knew about food insecurity, but they really didn't understand food insecurity. And they maybe heard about Feeding America and maybe heard about Foodshare or Connecticut Food Bank, but did they really understand the work that we did? Once the pandemic hit, they began to understand in a big way. Every night on the network news, people saw lines and lines of cars all over America at various sports venues, football stadiums, baseball stadiums lining up. We were not any different from any of those. As you mentioned, we were over at Rentschler Field, Pratt Whitney Stadium in East Hartford. We decided we had to do something. So we connected with Governor Lamont. He said, use the stadium. And we went over there, and in 54 weeks, we gave away 9.5 million pounds of food. We saw approximately 275,000 cars, and it was like about 2,000 families a day. When I say a day, it was open from 8:30 in the morning till 12:30 in the afternoon, which was incredible. And, we were there when, starting in the spring in April. So we were there when it was still cold and rainy. We sat there. Did you say that again? We sat there through. Sorry about that. It was my Apple Watch. We sat there and we went through all of the summer months. We went through the fall, back through the winter, and we just stayed and stayed and stayed. And it was very, very emotional work. I mean, people were there coming from all over the state at that point in time. We had not merged as of yet, bear in mind, but people were coming from all over the state. And it was really emotional. Cars coming through. Some people would just get their food and speed away, heads down, speed away. Other people would wave, they would cry. And the most challenging thing was to observe was watching the little children in the cars, because they didn't understand what mom and dad were going through, or why they were there, or why they were getting food from someone. And sure enough, we just got through it all. And we couldn't have done it without all of our volunteers. The volunteers were amazing people. We had 30 volunteers a day, and many of them were there almost every day for the 54 weeks. So it was incredible. It really was.
Yeah, I know a lot of the people who were coming to get food from Foodshare. These were folks that never imagined they would be in this situation. And it was very emotional for them, one, being able to get the help, but two, having to accept the help. It highlighted a situation that's actually been going on for a long time. Prior to the pandemic, United Way did what they called their ALICE study. And this was, working people that were still not making enough to make ends meet. And this just brought all of that out into the public eye.
Absolutely, Eric. And it was, the Alice thing, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. And I think the number is somewhere in the mid 40s thousands at that point. Maybe a family of four making about $46,000 a year. They were considered Alice. And so all of a sudden here, things were rolling along. Stock market was kind of doing well. Things were happening. Bonuses were given out to corporate employees all over America. And all of a sudden, the world stopped in mid-March of 2020 when the pandemic came. And we did some surveys at the site at Rentschler Field. And we found, believe it or not, that approximately 70% of the people that were going through those lines for the very first time had never, ever been to any service of Foodshare or any food pantry ever before. 70%. So there were people there that in line that maybe were making six-figure jobs a week or two prior to the pandemic hitting, that their jobs went away. And all of a sudden it was a whole different world. Maybe a spouse was home, maybe a spouse was sick. There were kids all over the place, and people needed to be fed. The kids were out of school, so they weren't getting meals in school. So this was another challenging aspect of it. So it was, people really stepped up. So we found ourselves purchasing a lot of food. Remember, as a food bank, the vast majority of the food that we receive comes from donations from the big retailers. People like Stop and Shop and Big Y and ShopRite and Walmart and Target and anyone that you could imagine. We buy a lot of fresh produce, but all of a sudden the supply chain was kind of empty. There wasn't anything to be had. So we had to purchase food from all different sources all over America. So it became really challenging. But I will tell you this, that the people in the state, and particularly here in our backyard in Greater Hartford, stepped up in a big way. And the donations came in and we were able to buy what we needed and take care of the people that we had to help. We also received help from the state, the Department of Agriculture. They came in with the different items for us as well. We have the Farms to Families program. So we have boxes of food, we have bread that we were giving away, meat, all types of things. So we took care of people in a big, big way. And to this day, people have really remembered that, and they continue to support and help us. We're very grateful for that.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of nonprofits who rely on fundraising events had to pivot, and you have a couple of events that you did right away. I mean, I know that you have a walk every year. I know that you do your turkey drive every year. So tell us a little bit how you pivoted as far as that raising money and how that went.
Absolutely. So it was those things became a little challenging for us, Chip. First of all, we normally have our walk every May. And obviously in 2020, that couldn't happen. We did a virtual walk in September, which is Hunger Action Month, just to continue to have our name and our words out there. We weren't, in 2020, we weren't able to do any turkey drives. So we had to purchase turkeys and put them out there to people. 2021 came, same thing happened all over again. We couldn't plan a walk for May. So we did a live event at Dunkin' Donuts Park, the home of the Yard Goats, in September. We really couldn't do turkey drives, and now we were a combined organization. So we had to purchase a lot of the turkeys to people that wanted them across the state. We received some amazing corporate turkey contributions as well as monies. And we purchased an awful lot. And remember, at that point in time, because of the supply chain situations, it was very, very difficult to get our hands on turkeys, and they were very expensive. So we spent a lot of money on those, but we were proud to report that when all was said and done on Thanksgiving Day in 2021, we had given out over 50,000 turkeys to the people of Connecticut, on top of all the other work that we do. And then they had side dishes and everything else. So everyone that wanted a warm meal for Thanksgiving Day, that had asked for one, I think had one. So that was a good situation. But now we're trying to come out of things a little bit. We have our walk scheduled coming up back at Dunkin' Donuts Park this May, May 21st, Saturday, May 21st. We actually just opened registration on Friday. So people could go on to www.ctfoodsharewalk.org and they could register today. You could register as an individual person, make a donation. You can create a team. You could join a team. We hope that everyone will come out and support it. We'll have swag to give away that day. And basically, we walk about 1.5 miles through the streets of Hartford around Bushnell Park and basically make the statement that hunger in this state of Connecticut is just not acceptable. So it's the largest anti-hunger event in the state. And we have corporate donors that support us. So sponsorships are available. They can reach out to me and get information on that. But it's a wonderful, wonderful event. We're also continuing to do, we'll do our other things coming up in the fall. As I mentioned, this is our 40th anniversary. We will be doing a 40th anniversary celebration. That details are still being ironed out, but we hope to have it at our warehouse in Wallingford. It will be a very, very casual, fun evening with hopefully an 80s theme. So that should be rather interesting. So both you guys were my friends, and we kind of grew up throughout the 80s, came into adulthood a little bit more. Maybe you'll enjoy that if you come there and be part of the 80s celebration. So hopefully that'll be a good thing too. And then hopefully we'll be going back to our live turkey drives of some sort when we get into November at the end of the year. But the big thing is every dollar that we bring in, money goes further than the food. Every dollar that we bring in provides 2 meals to the people of Connecticut. Last year, we were able to provide over 47 million meals. So it's really important to support our work. We got a lot of things going on. I mentioned partner programs. We have mobile food distributions all over the state of Connecticut. We do retail food rescue. So we're out at the supermarkets, picking up food, bringing it to the warehouse, bringing it directly to partner programs. We have 3 facilities right now. So we have Wallingford. We still have the old Bloomfield location where we're still doing work there. And the third one is down in Bridgeport. It's a satellite location. And in Bridgeport, we pack senior boxes. Now, seniors struggle a lot with food insecurity because they're on fixed incomes. They have to make a choice between food and rent, food and medicine, food and transportation. Those are tough situations, and they're not all getting SNAP dollars. So the money runs out many times halfway through the month. So these senior boxes that we're doing, they're called CFAP. It's an acronym. We're actually, we pack these boxes. So we have corporate groups that come into our facility in Bridgeport, and they pack them. And we pack about 3,000 boxes a month that are distributed to eligible seniors around the state of Connecticut. Big work. A lot of people could get involved. Speaking of volunteers, we need volunteers. During the pandemic, a lot of people pulled back because corporate groups couldn't come out. Seniors pulled back. Students weren't eligible. So we had to get some temporary folks to help us. We've got as many volunteers as we possibly could. Now, slowly, the volunteers are starting to coming back again. Last year, we had about 3,600 volunteers. We still need more. There's a lot of opportunities. You can go to our website, ctfoodshare.org, and you can find out how you can volunteer any way you'd like, either as a group or as an individual. There's a lot of ways to get involved.
That's fantastic. Now, of course, knock on wood, we're seeing the pandemic wane, but now we're seeing inflation shoot up and food prices have gone through the roof. What are you seeing in terms of changes in need, different people coming? There's still obviously that need.
Absolutely, Eric. I mean, it's here. It's not going away anytime soon. I mean, and we could not be in a worse time for this inflation thing to happen. Gas going from $3 and change a gallon to $4 and $5. Who knows where that's going to end, right? All the stuff in the supermarkets, everything going up and up and up. People that are on some kind of assistance, many people are eligible we talk about SNAP. SNAP is the old food stamp program. It's an acronym known as Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And, it's SNAP dollars that people get. But finally, Congress passed the act to be able to increase the amount of dollars that were eligible for people on SNAP. They originally had that based on dollars, cost of groceries going back 40 and 50 years. And it was one of the first times they ever expanded it late last year. But still, it's not enough. So, yes, I mean, some of these things, the cost of meat, we all know that. The cost of healthy food, that's a part of the problem. So people living under the poverty line struggle. And we talked earlier about where there's food insecurity. Yes, it's in all the big cities, but it's in the suburbs as well. But in the big cities, think about it. Many people of color suffer, Hispanics, African Americans. It's a tough situation. Many people that are living in the city don't have transportation. There's no supermarkets in the city. So they're going in and they're going to the local bodegas and they're buying any kind of food that they could get. What's that food? It's soda, it's potato chips, it's cookies and cakes. Are they eating nutritiously? That's a tough problem. So there's a lot of equation here going on between hunger and health equity. And so we're working with a lot of the healthcare partners as well around the state to try to be able to do some things to bring that to life as well. One of the areas that we have in our organization, it's called the Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions. It began about 2.5 years ago. It's headed up by an incredible woman by the name of Dr. Katie Martin. She is the executive director. It's part of Connecticut Foodshare. And Katie does a lot of things. She's a PhD in food nutrition. She's written a book on reinventing food banks and food pantries. It's talking about changing the paradigm. About, I mentioned earlier, we could keep giving food out for the next 40 years, but where are we really headed? So there's a lot of best practices that she pushes for. She does things. She works with Feeding America as well. She goes around and talks to other food banks, talks to some of the pantries. There's some best practices. She developed a program called SWAP, and SWAP is an acronym for Supporting Wellness at Pantries. Right here in Greater Hartford, Hands on Hartford uses that program. It's a stoplight system that shows clients as they come in to get food into the pantry, red, yellow, or green. Green being, get this food as many times as you can. Yellow, get it, but be careful. There might be a little bit of sodium or some extra sugar in there. Red, be very, very careful with what you're getting on that, because that's going to lead to health issues, obesity, chronic disease, et cetera, that type of thing. So she's going around. She's really promoted this around the country. We also she talks about more than food, and it's really getting at root causes of hunger. Why are people having problems? And all the other things that come about. We talked about underemployment, mental health issues. There's a lot of things that come into play here. And if we can make people more self-sustaining, it's going to be a better community for many of us and everyone around us. So, we're hoping to do a lot of things. There's a lot of work in front of us, but it's going to be done. It's got to get done, and we need to be able to move ahead.
It's great that you guys are doing so much on the health front, as well as getting, healthy food to people. And I don't think most people realize how many areas there are in the United States that are considered food deserts, where people just don't have access to a wide range of food.
You're absolutely right. We have it right here. We have right in North Hartford, the North End. There's problems there. It's a very, very tough situation. So, we talk about food pantries and the 700 partner programs. Included in that 700 partner programs, we also have mobile food distribution sites. We talked earlier about what we did at Rensselaer Field, right during the pandemic. But we also there's about 100 sites around the state of Connecticut that we go to with our trucks, our mobile trucks. They look like the big old beer trucks. The sides pull up on, open up on the sides. It's refrigerated. Volunteers are waiting at the sites. and out comes bread and produce and meats and things like that for people to take and bring home and feed their families. No questions asked. Many of these sites are municipal parking lots, church parking lots. They're all over the state of Connecticut. And, it's really, really important that people rely on that. So we go to those places every 2 times a month, same day, same time, and our trucks are there and the people are waiting for us. Many times it's as many as 50 people or as high as sometimes 150 people waiting in line when the truck gets there. So we try to take care of them as well as we can. One of the things we did during the pandemic, we actually partnered up with Hartford Healthcare at some of their sites as well around the state, where we combined our mobile distribution sites along with vaccine sites. So they had their people there as well, and they were able to, a lot of them are underserved people or elderly or what have you, and they're getting food, register to get a vaccination, or possibly in some situations got the vaccination right then and there. So we're trying to be good community partners with our fellow community partners, and I think it's working out really, really well.
That's absolutely fantastic. We are just about out of time. So for anybody who needs the services of Connecticut Foodshare or anybody who'd want to donate to Connecticut Foodshare, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, first of all, I would encourage anyone that has interest, either learning more or making a donation or to volunteer, please go today to www.ctfoodshare.org. Once again, www.ctfoodshare.org. That is our site. There's many ways you can see where you could get involved there, either to donate, you could volunteer, you could advocate for us, and there's a lot of information there. There's also information there for the Institute that I described earlier. So, and once again, Walk Against Hunger coming up, May 21st, Dunkin' Donuts Park, our great partners, the Hartford Yard Goats. Please come, be there, or donate online. There's no cost to come. You could but if you want to make a donation, you could donate whatever you want, and you could come that day, or you could donate online. It's a lot of fun, and you'll feel really good helping others that need the help.
Great. Thanks so much for being with us. Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from this week?
Well, the way that all three of us met was through networking, which is relationship building. And what that is all about is a specific ask as far as what your needs are, and then having people spread the word to help you out. And obviously a big part of it, as Al mentioned, go to ctfoodshare.org for all the information that you need and to get involved individually and whatever. But for those of you who own businesses or work at businesses and so on and so forth, get your businesses to take a look at this thing too. And as Al said, there's different ways that you can do this. You can have a team in there walking, so on and so forth. There's all kinds of incentive programs as far as donations goes and matching and this and that, whatever. But if you get involved in so many different ways, but basically the word is ctfoodshare.org, take it to yourself, take it to your business, and just get into action and help out, because they've done a magnificent job, and there's still so much work that has to be done to take care of people right here.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big takeaway is 2 items. One is you never know who is suffering from food insecurity. It's not just the people that, we all imagine or see on TV. People come from all walks of life and they all need help. And the second thing is, if you do need help, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Reach out, get the help you need, get the food you need to stay healthy. It's all very important, and Connecticut Foodshare does a fantastic job of getting all of that out. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us, as well as the rest of the Xvadio podcast network, at Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.